Hi designers, it's Haley with Silver Moon Design School, and in today's tutorial I'm going to show you how to create a 6-pack carrier mock-up. You know, one of those cardboard foldy carriers that you can put beer or seltzers, but I'm going to show you how to create that carrier in this video using Adobe Illustrator and Adobe Dimension, so that you can have a stunning 3D mock-up of your designs to impress your clients and stand out in your portfolio. If you're running short on time, I do offer this download on my Creative Market, so you can skip the tutorial and get straight to the mock-up part. But if you have time and want to learn, stick around. I'll walk you through step by step how to make it. So first, I'm starting out in Adobe Illustrator. I have a new document with a layer that I've called Reference that I've placed these reference images on, and I've locked it so that I can't move them around as I'm drawing and tracing over them. And I also have a layer called Design, and this is the one I'm going to be working on. So first, I'm going to look at this top view that I have, and I'm going to start to trace over with my rectangle tool. And I'm just going to draw over this shape, and I'm going to match up the corners as best as I can, considering that there is a bit of an angle, right? So I'm going to add a little bit of a width to it to compensate for that. Okay, so now that I've drawn my rectangle, I'm going to keep the shape white, but I'm going to add a stroke that is like a medium gray, because what I'm going to recreate is this dashed line, like the perforation on the sides. So you can see I have my rectangle and I have the stroke, and I'm going to come over to my stroke panel and click on dashed line. And the default's going to work pretty good, but if I count, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So maybe if I just go back and count, I can say the points for the dash should maybe be, let's try 18. Now let's see if that gives us 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Close enough. It doesn't have to be exact, but as long as the perforations are all the same as we go about this journey. And then I'm also going to click on this corners so that it's even on the top and the bottom. Okay, so you can see that I've created this section, the center panel here. I'm going to move it to the side so that I can figure out what kind of shape this cutout is. And I think I'm going to ignore, do you see how there's this flap that flips out? I think I might ignore that on this example. I don't know that it's super crucial to the design. So as I'm creating that, I'm going to leave it off and just make a rounded section for a hand and center those using our align tools, and then bring it to, I think that's a pretty good position. If I go back to the height, that looks to be about right. Let me also look at the height from this section again. I think I can bring it up slightly. Same with that cutout for the handle. Boom. And then I'm going to come over to our Pathfinder tools, and I'm going to do minus front so that it is a cutout there. That way when we come over to our 3D and materials panel, and this is under window, 3D and materials, but I just have it saved on the side. Clicking on 3D materials, click on extrude. And for the depth, I'm going to type in 0.01, just to give it a little bit of thickness, but not so much that it looks weird, right? Like that default was just way too thick. So that is that panel there. Next, I'm going to create the outer box shape, and we see from this side angle that they are tapered in this one. So I'm going to, again, grab my rectangle tool because it should have that stroke saved. And I'm just going to trace and match up those corners. And then using that arrow, the A arrow, I'm clicking on this one anchor point and using shift and arrow down to nudge that one corner down to create that slant that we need. And then again, you can see that this has created one wall, and I'm going to click on extrude. It's too thick, so 0.01 for the depth. And that will be the wall that we use on all of the other sides. Now I can come to this rectangle, the original one that we made, that centerpiece, and I'm going to hold Option and drag to make a copy. You can Command C, Command V, Command D to duplicate, and I'm going to hide under Appearance. I'm going to hide that 3D materials for a moment same as I make a copy of the angled wall. I'm going to hide that for a minute just because I want to create a rectangle that meets this height here, the lowest point of that rectangle, and the width of that inner piece, because we want these to connect. So now that I've traced over and I've met the bottom edge of that angle and the back, I will delete those because now we will have all of those pieces. So I can add the extrude effect, come back to 0.01, hit yes, and that will give us those outside shapes, because what I'll do is duplicate this 3 more times, duplicate this another time, and that will give us those walls. Now we'll need those inside dividers because you won't necessarily see them from the outside, but you will see them if you have an angle that's like above or below, and we want to have everything pretty exact, right? So I'm just going to go ahead and copy this rectangle again because the depth should be about the same. So what I will do is just grab this one anchor point again and bring it down until it matches this one. And you can either use the align tools and then bump down slightly shorter because it doesn't show from the outside, right? It's kind of like an inset. So I think that should be good for an inner piece right there. It's pretty simple, but these are all the pieces that we need. The other thing we can do is you can follow along. It was my very first tutorial that has how to create a bottle shape like this, but I'm gonna go ahead and throw that in now. Okay, so I've added a beer bottle and I will just show you quickly how to make that so we can complete this project. I'm gonna hit Command R and turn on my rulers. And I'm going to take our rectangle tool again, and I'm going to trace from the outside edge of this bottle, the whitest points. And then I will drag my ruler to the center, and this will help give us a guide. Let me just make sure that it is truly in the center of this bottle, because 1 little inch off and it could just make it a little bit thicker or thinner than we want. So, okay, perfect. And now drag that ruler to the center. And I'm going to delete that rectangle just because I like to use the pen tool for this. And I'm going to trace the outside of this bottle. So starting with, there's a little bit of warping going on, right? So I'm going to have to interpret this slightly at the bottom. And I also want to turn off the stroke and the fill so that I can see what's going on. So I'm just loosely following the shape for the bottom. I'll do some tweaks there. But yeah, just using the pen tool to trace over 1/2 of this shape. And it doesn't have to be perfect because these are kind of lumpy, right? The glass itself is not perfectly perfect. There are those imperfections that make it look like a bottle, but we're gonna do our best here to get it perfect. I'm also going to use my smooth tool here at the bottom just to get that curve right. And now that I have this line, I'm going to go to Object, Path, and Offset Path, and I'm going to choose 0.01 for that because glass is thin, and we can always add a little bit of thickness on the base or the neck, but maybe 0.15 would be generous enough for that glass. And then using the scissors tool, coming in and snipping on the outer line because we really just need that inner stroke, right? So now I can delete this outer line. And then we want the mouth of this bottle to be open. So I'm also going to use the scissors tool to snip at where the opening would be for that glass bottle and then delete those extra paths that we don't need. Make sure that you're not accidentally deleting everything. There we go. And then I can also remove a lot of these anchor points in the center because it gets thicker. It's a smooth inner chamber there. And then using that pen tool to connect and smooth out. All right, and so now that the inside follows there, I just need to connect the shape at the bottom, which I can do by bringing the anchor points together, highlighting both paths, and then hitting Command J to join them. And you want those to be smooth because they will connect as we revolve around, but we could bring them in a little bit. We can move it up a little just to give it that little realistic touch where beer bottles have that section in the center that go up as such. And a lot of this I'm just doing from memory of, what beer bottles look like. Okie dokie. Now I'm going to take the stroke, I'm going to flip it to a fill, and then I can choose a color like amber and go to 3D and materials and click on revolve. And there it's going to give us a pretty realistic looking bottle. Again, we can do some tweaks now that we see what it's going to look like once it's created, but that is a beer bottle or a glass bottle. Doesn't have to have beer in it. Now that we have all of these pieces, I'm going to select all of them and right click, collect for export, and select as multiple assets. This will give us everything individually. From there I can name stuff, and then from the format on the drop down I'm going to click on OBJ, and with all of them highlighted, click on export. Alright, now we're in Adobe Dimension. I've opened up a new file and the default settings are just a tad too small for my taste. So first thing I do is go to zoom, select 100, and I always scale up this canvas, artboard, whatever it is called. I think it's called a canvas. And I scale it up to about 2000 pixels wide, just whatever fills my entire screen. And then I always come to resolution and select 300 so that I can have a really nice high resolution rendering when we're all done. And then I start building stuff. So I'm going to bring in the center wall first just so I can get that situated. And I can click on this button that says move to bottom so that it puts it right on the base for us. Now I'm going to move around using this orbit tool. I'm going to rotate some things around, zooming in so that I can get this in the position that I want. And I try to choose the center line and then have things line up. I kind of do have to eyeball it, but I think that that is looking pretty centered. And then moving the shape so it's in the center. And I can zoom, create a camera bookmark, and save it as front just so I can have a good point of reference as I move around in space to come back and have one center point to work from. So now that I have the center wall, I'm going to bring that angled wall in next. And I'm holding shift when I rotate things around to keep everything at right angles. That's just a nice helpful little hack. And you can see I'm dragging this until it hits the very edge, hitting bottom, and then moving those around. So also for the center wall, it did kind of look like there were two of them when it was folded. So I can select this entire folder and hit duplicate, and that will give us another one that we can move to create that kind of 2-ply look. If we hit the render preview, it'll give us a better idea of how that's looking. Okay, and then with the angled wall, I'm going to duplicate that and move it to the other side. Rotate around. Yep. All right, and now that I have angled wall 1 and 2, I can group those together. Angled wall front. And now we can duplicate that. Command D. And then flip it around and scooch it back. So they should be in the exact same place on the opposite side. And let's go back to our front view. Looking good. Now I can bring in the front wall here. And now that it's all grouped, we can say center wall 2. We can highlight all of these and then go to align and hit center. And it'll make sure that everything that we've done is in the center, but that might move it off of the point that we originally had it. So just scoot everything back, click on that front, move it to the base, and I know we'll have to scooch it back until it hits the angled wall edge, but there we go. We might need to do one more little bump. And then duplicating the front and moving it to the back. Now as we rotate around, we have our case. All right. And we don't necessarily need the perforation in that inset, right? So it's treating, Dimension's treating every stroke like its own individual layer. So we can come in and we can locate those. Let's hide center wall 2 for now, and then come back to center wall 1. Yep. And then we'll just hit this eyeball until we find the stroke that we want to delete. It's not the most efficient method, but we will find it. Maybe we'll start at the bottom. It might be one of the last ones. This is the main. I'm going to label that because I might add a material to it that I don't want added to the lines. Okay, I think it's going to be somewhere. Oh, here's one. So I'll just go there and I'll delete that. I'm going to guess it's like 21 through 23 and maybe number 20. Okay, cool. Now our perforation, there's no extra lines on the inside there. So I can even delete number 2, and now that I have one that is good, even adding a material. So even if we wanted to add like matte or plastic or the cardboard, I'm not choosing the cardboard in this instance because it is corrugated and I don't want that look for this box in particular. So I'm going to keep it matte. But you see if we drag the material to everything, it changes the colors of the wall. So we don't necessarily want that. If you can find the layer that is that main color, you can detach it from the rest of the styles and then drag matte onto it and adjust it independently. So the color that you choose for this is not applied to the rest of the lines, as you can see there. So now we're going to take a look, and that is looking very convincing. We need to put in those inner walls still. So if we move to the top of our box, this will be helpful as we do the inner dividers. And rotating those, holding shift till they're 90 degrees. And then I'm just going to eyeball it at first. Inner divider. And I don't think I want any of those lines, so I'm going to go ahead and find, it should be this last one. Yep. And then I'm just going to delete all of those dashes because I don't really want those included. Inner divider, because I just don't think that they would have perforation. And then I'm going to ungroup it so it's just its own thing. And then let me see, using orbit tool, moving around. Okay, so inner divider needs to go to the base and move in. Ta-da! Okay, now I'll go back to the top view and I'm going to duplicate that again and scooch it over. And this is where it can be helpful to start bringing in the bottle. So I'm going to place that in, bring it to the floor, position this so that we can see if it is dividing it properly. Before I start duplicating, I'm going to choose glass for the bottle as the material. And we'll just go with clear for the purposes of my aesthetic. And then this will be bottle. And now I'm just going to start duplicating these. Beautiful. And then I can highlight and select all of these, group together, duplicate, and then move to the back. I can do the same with the inner dividers. I can duplicate and then move those back. And now when I look at the front view, there's our box. I can swing to the side view, which I think will be the best look. And I can save that as a camera bookmark. But I will zoom in a little bit, reposition it. And then I'll also want to change the color and also the lighting. But let me start with the lighting. I'm going to do a 3-point light because that is my favorite. Since everything is white and the background's white and the light is white, it's just going to be really blown out. So I always bring the global intensity down to 35%. And then I also go to shadow opacity and bring that down to under 50% because I want softer shadows. I don't want them to be so intense. But yep, that's looking good. All right, so I created a quick graphic, but first I'm going to sample the color here. I'm going to get the hex value because I want to add that in Dimension. So if I come back to all of these, I can come in and change the color to that tan color. And I'll have to do this on each individual thing that I am double clicking on. But once you paste the hex value, it'll remember it for everything. So that is good. You only have to paste it once and then it'll be in the swatches here. You can easily come and click and change everything. And then with the inner dividers, I am going to select all of them, put them in a group named inner divider. And I can take the matte texture, because that's just what I'm rocking with for everything here, drag that to the whole folder. And then if I come to anything within the drop down, it'll automatically change it, remember? So that is super good for us. All right, now I'm going to export the graphics that I made. I'm going to select both of them. You can do individuals. I'm just going to group it together. And I'm going to say front panel. You know what? I might actually do them separate so I can put 6-pack on different areas. So let me do the single asset as a single asset. And then this can be the 6-pack and this can be the logo. And then click export as a PNG. Now I can come in and drag those into the designs, reposition it. It's going to come in super big, so I'll just size it down. Try not to warp anything. Put it in the corner. I'll take the logo, I'll place it on here as well. Put it right in the middle. And then, yeah, you can kind of just drag and drop all of your designs if you wanted it to be more intricate. I could add like a foil to this. So if I click on this material, there's a metallic setting, so I can make that shiny. So yeah, you just drag and drop and apply your graphics and your design to any and all of these pieces, and then you'll have a really good mock-up. You can see in the render preview. And here's the final look. Alright designers, that wraps up this tutorial. Thank you so much for following along. If you found it helpful, go ahead and subscribe to my channel, leave a comment telling me what video you want to see next. I really do appreciate all of your views and all of your comments. Until next time.